Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Exodia Yugioh deck profile for post-Rage of the Abyss. We actually only got one new card in the Rage of the Abyss booster set, being the Heart of Blue Eyes for the Exodia deck, but it's still a really good card for supporting the new Exodia FTK deck. So I figured an update was due also just with changing some of the numbers for other cards that are run in the deck on top of the new Blue Eyes monster, which was Yugi's grandpa's original Blue Eyes, added into the deck since it was supposed to be his deck that he would run in, I guess you could say, current format. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off with the main deck monsters, we're still running the Exodia set. So we're running the 5 pieces of Exodia. Ignore the different rarities that I have for all of the pieces. I don't remember where I put my lost arts. They're in a binder somewhere. I just have to find them. But I wanted to do the deck profile, and I was searching for the lost art pieces. They're here somewhere. So I guess we'll just have to use the budget store Exodia pieces for this deck profile. But one of each piece, that's what they're on for the ban list. So that's what we have to work with. For the new Blue Eyes monster, I have 2 normal Blue Eyes for placeholders, but you do want to run 3 of this new card, Heart of the Blue Eyes. With this card, it's treated as a Millennium card. It cannot, control of this card cannot be switched, which I think is kind of to play into the fact that Kaiba took this card from Yugi's grandpa to use. You can discard this card to add 1 Millennium Ankh from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Heart of the Blue Eyes once per turn. If this card's in your graveyard and you have successfully activated Millennium Ankh this duel, and your opponent normal or special summons a monster that is level 8 or higher, or has 3,000 or more attack, you can send that monster to the graveyard and special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Heart of the Blue Eyes once per duel, but still, it's a search for your main go-to spell, Millennium Ankh. So having a search for the spell and having to get around the life point gain for your other Millennium monsters, since you'll most of the time hopefully have the Millennium Ankh in your hand to use, you definitely want to run 3 of this so you always have that search to be able to use for that card. We're also running 3 copies of Sengajin Wakes from the Millennium. It cannot be destroyed by monster effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Sengajin once per turn. If this card's in your hand, you can place it in your spell and trap card zone as face-up continuous spell. While this card has a continuous spell, you can either pay 2,000 life points or reveal the Millennium Ankh, which once again, with Heart of the Blue Eyes being able to search out that card, makes it all the better to special summon this card and add 1 Millennium monster from your deck to your hand. Extending your Millennium monster search, we're also running 2 copies of Shield of the Millennium Dynasty. With this card, it cannot be destroyed by spell or trap effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Dynasty once per turn. If it's in your hand, you can place it in your spell and trap card zone as a face-up continuous spell. And while it's a continuous spell, you can either pay 2,000 life points or reveal Millennium Ankh to special summon this card, then add 1 Millennium Ankh from your deck to your hand. So it's another search for Ankh on top of Heart of Blue Eyes. I would say Heart of Blue Eyes is definitely a lot better, but still, it gives you a defensive play to use on the field when you have it in your hand early on. And 2 copies of Millennium Treasures, or Golem that guards the Millennium Treasures, being able to place it once again with this card, and the activation of Millennium Ankh cannot be negated, so setting this up if you know your opponent has a negate is very useful as well. And then being able to pay 2,000 or reveal Millennium Ankh to special summon this card, then you can add a Yugioh Temple from your deck to your hand, which the Yugioh Temple is your field spell, so just being able to add that card off of this as well. With the last of our Millennium monsters being 1 copy of Maiden of the Millennium Moon and the 1 Fiend Reflection of the Millennium, being able to have you gain life points equal to half the attack of 1 monster on the field with Fiend Reflection, and then also make it so your level 5 or higher illusion or spellcaster monsters can't be destroyed by card effects, having the same setup and special summon as your other Millennium monsters also. With our other main deck monsters, I'm running 2 copies of Effect Veiler and 3 copies of Ash Blossom. You only need a few cards to really set up your combo pieces in this deck, so having hand traps fill the majority of the other spots means you can at least have answers if your opponent were to go first against you, and then be able to shut them down, giving them a lackluster field setup compared to what you'll be able to do on your following turn with your go-to spell to summon out your Exodia, the Unstoppable Incarnate, and that is the Millennium Ankh. You show 5 Forbidden 1 monster cards from your hand, deck, and or face-up on the field. Special summon 1 Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate from your extra deck. Shuffle the face-up monster cards you control to the deck, except for the Exodia monster, whose original levels are 10 or higher, and Millennium monsters. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn. After activation, you shuffle this card into the deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. So, 3 of this card, you can search it off of the Millennium Dynasty or your Heart of the Blue Eyes, but you still want to be able to see this card because it's your main go-to play to set up your Exodia, the Unstoppable Incarnate. We also run the 3 copies of Yugioh Temple, a field spell. During your main phase, you can place one monster from your hand in your spell and trap card zone as a face of continuous spell, then place one Millennium monster from your deck in your spell and trap card zone as a face of continuous spell. So being able to grab the specific ones you may want for other plays, having the reveal for the Millennium Monk in your hand to then use this card for that special summon of the additional monster you also set up thanks to this card also. And then we also run the one copy of Obliterate Blaze. One level 10 or higher monster on the field with Exodia gains the effects. You can pay half your life points, destroy as many cards in your spell and trap card zone as possible, then equip 5 Forbidden One monsters from your hand or deck as equip spells to it, giving it 2,000 attack. So this will put your Exodia up to 10,000 attack or more. And if it attacks a defense monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So then with this card, it gains these effects. So you have the piercing battle damage as well. So you have your Exodia gain the effects, so you can clear out the spell and trap card zone with Obliterate Blaze as well. So then after you activate, you pay the half, equip all 5, and then you have your Exodia that can either swing into your opponent's monster for a game or hit them directly for that damage. We're also running 2 copies of Melody of the Awakening Dragon, discarding 1 card to add up to 2 dragon monsters with 3,000 more attack and 2,500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. This is meant to add your Heart of the Blue Eyes, just because this card meets the requirements for this card, and then you're basically giving yourself 2 searches for the Millennium Monk, one on the turn that you added off of this card, so your Melody of the Awakening Dragon can extend into Heart of the Blue Eyes, and then that card can extend into the Millennium Monk. All very, very useful search power. We also run for the one-ofs, 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent and 1 Terraforming, another search for Wedju Temple, and also just a reaction if your opponent were to try and react to any of your monster effects. We're also running 2 copies to finish off these spells of Crossout Designator. We have the Infinite Impermanence and the Trap lineup, and then also just the Effect Failures and the Ash Blossoms for targets to be able to grab off of this card as well. And also for the traps, 2 copies of Exode Fires of Rage. This card's always treated as an Exode or Obliterate card. If you control a level 10 or higher Exodia monster, destroy all cards your opponent controls. If this card's in your graveyard except the turn was sent there, you can banish it to either add a Forbidden One monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, or shuffle 5 Exodia monsters from your graveyard and or banishment into the deck. So being able to at least shuffle back your banished Exodia cards really does help with this card. There's a good chance if you're playing against decks like Runic that you could banish an Exodia piece, so being able to have a card like this to be able to get them back definitely is a big help. With the last of the traps, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Just as I said, you can have a big number of hand traps in this deck and not really affect your big go-to plays. Now, for the extra deck, our main go-to extra deck monster to rely on is our Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. Needing 5 Forbidden One monsters, you summon it out with Millennium Ankh. It cannot be destroyed by an opponent's card effects once per turn. If this card battles during damage step, you can make this card gain attack equal to your life points. And once per turn, when a spell or trap effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate that activation. And once per turn during the end phase, set 1 Exode or Obliterate spell or trap from your deck. Once per turn during your standby, lose 1,000 life points. So it's the ticking timer of having this boss monster on the field. But if you use cards like your go-to spell being our Obliterate Blaze, this will be the card that could swing for game of your opponent. You have the life point gain for it, so the more you spend for your Millennium monster to be able to summon out, the weaker it'll be, but the 10,000 that you can get by equipping your Exodia pieces could be enough if then this card swings into a monster for piercing battle damage. We're also running the rest of the extract just being generic lineup, so the 1 Asa the Earth Charmer, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, the 1 the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Barricade Board Blocker, and the 1 Cross Sheep, along with the 1 copy of IP Masquerena, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, the 1 Boral Sword, the 1 Moon the Closed Heaven, and the 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World to finish off the extra deck lineup as well. As I said, most of the time, your main go-to monster that you're going to be summoning out is your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. As for some of the go-to plays, as I said, we had the needed extension of your Melody of the Awakening Dragon. Just by discarding a card, you can search out your 2 copies of Heart of the Blue Eyes, being able to then grab those cards to your hand. You have the discard play of this card to then be able to add your Millennium Ankh. So added search power, whether you have to use Millennium Dynasty or your Heart of the Blue Eyes, you want to go for the preferred Heart of the Blue Eyes, because then this also gives you an answer in the graveyard after the discard to summon and stop an opponent's monster on their field while giving you a bigger monster on the field that will not be shuffled back when you summon out your big Exodia Incarnate off of the Millennium Ankh, since it is still counted as a Millennium monster. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, wanted to update this deck. We only had 1 new card, but I've been making some changes to the numbers for the Exodia deck, so I felt an update was definitely due. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.